I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Marshall and a second by Dr. Malkow. Any questions? All right, since Ms. Lessentine is with us via Zoom, we are going to have to do an individual roll call. So, Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Baxo?
Aye.
Dr. Malkow?
Aye.
Ms. Lessentine? Not sure if she's there, so, and I'm an aye. With that, all right. Motion passes. Mr. Marshall, is there any correspondence?
I am not in possession of any. Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to our liaison committee updates. Mr. Marshall?
At this point, nothing to report on the personnel interview committee.
Thank you. Mr. Baxo?
Nothing really to report to our redevelopment committee. We are doing a lot of infrastructure, a lot of paving of streets and stuff. So that's one of the big things.
Okay.
How is the or the new fire station come, is it started?
Yeah, it's come along nicely. The whole shell is up. So they're probably, my estimate, 30-40% done with it.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Malkow?
Are you going to report on wellness? Or I wasn't there, but was Sandy there?
I don't know. I don't have any report this evening.
You were there. Do you want to report on wellness?
There were 5 of us. Bottom line is that it was discussed about the wellness challenge that we do every year. The committee came up with is they want to do a walking challenge starting in February. So at our November meeting, we'll get together, we'll discuss it, finalize everything that we need to, and hopefully be ready for February.
Very good.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
For the wellness?
Well, for your committees.
Oh. Legislative, it's we're in a holding pattern right now, as you are all aware, because of the voting that's going on. The Education Foundation, we did have a meeting the other night, and I think we're like every other nonprofit organization trying to brainstorm ways to make money and keep ourselves going. Do you want to say anything about that, Mrs. Talent?
That's exactly right. We have a couple, 3 people that are really working on getting, like dinner night for students, also covers, so that would be coming up. So we can continue to plan to provide the grant money for the spring round. We're just a real positive, we're really thinking positive for that to happen. So still working on it. Yep.
Yes.
Don't forget La Quesadilla will do that too, as well as Texas Roadhouse. They'll do.
Did you hear
La Quesadilla and Texas Roadhouse will also do those nights for you.
those matches?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a short meeting, but it was a sweet meeting, so that's kind of where we're at, just trying to keep it together.
Great. Ms. Lessentine? Oh, sure.
I'd really like to say thank you to Dr. Bracco because for our newsletter that he puts out in the fall, the quarterly newsletter for us, for the whole corporation. It has mentioned our fundraiser for the license plate and also has mentioned other ways that we're able to help out and indicate, that we are trying to provide PPE for this last fall. So thank you, Dr. Bracco, for putting that work in there for us. Yes.
Right, payroll deduction, and I've heard a lot of people be very thankful for the donation that came from Education Foundation for the safety protocols that you donated to us. So thank you for that. Okay.
Okay. Ms. Lessentine, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry, I switched devices.
All right. Do you have anything? Oh, do you have anything for your committees that you'd like to?
I have no updates for my committees at this time.
Thank you. And I don't have anything for my committees either. So we'll move on to our official school board business topics, consent agenda. Dr. Bracco.
Thank you again. So I seek board approval of the minutes from our regular board meeting on October 5th and board approval for the claims payroll and extracurricular expenditures that you received last week.
Motion to approve consent agenda?
Second?
We have a motion from Mr. Baxo and a second from Ms. Lessentine. All right. Do we have any Questions or comments? Hearing none, we will do a roll call. Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Mr. Baxo?
Aye.
Dr. Malkow?
Aye.
Ms. Lessentine?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Motion passes. Any public comments? Thank you. We'll move on to our official school board business topics, regular agenda. Dr. Baracco.
So for our first item, I'm going to ask Mrs. Novak to come down to talk a little bit or remind us all of the worthy accomplishments of Louise Talent from last year. With all that happened over the summer and early fall, we're a little tardy in getting to Mrs. Talent, but we certainly appreciate her career of service at Lake Central and want to recognize her for something from last year yet. Go ahead, Erin.
Absolutely, thank you. Louise and I have worked together for many years, so it's wonderful that I get to give you this certificate and recognize you for all of your hard work, because I've worked alongside you and I know how many hours of dedication you've put in. So I could speak from the heart about Louise very easily, but I wrote it down because this has a lot of letters to it, so I don't want to mess it up. But after a long, successful career with the Lake Central School Corporation, in her final year of teaching, Mrs. Louise Talent achieved the outstanding recognition of being one of 4 national finalists for more. Congratulations, Louise. I wish I could give you a big hug.
Well, we can do this. We're good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Could I add some comments also?
Sure.
Is that okay, President? You know, similar to Erin, I mean, I've known Louise for many, many years and worked with her in different formats. And, you know, she started as a PTO president, I believe, over at Bibbage School. And then when we worked together, she was our Dean of Students when I was there. She was there to help with Spell Bowl. She was there to help with Math Bowl. Then she became in charge of Lake Central Education Foundation. And talk about a lady and a family, because it is her family too, that gives to the community. Because not only do they do school-related events, but also, for example, the fundraisers that we did for how many years to raise the funds to build the Veterans Museum at the Safety Village. She helps with the Buns Care charity with their collection of shoes for the boys and girls in the winter. And she has helped me on the side with some jail ministry work that I do. And I think the ultimate is probably what you were recently assigned to do, which is so awesome because you provided authentic experiences for our high school students as they develop their career pathway. And that's just really very excellent. So I wanted to add those comments.
Thank you so much.
You're
Ms. President, could I say a few words too?
Absolutely.
I've known Louise probably for about 15 years. I know when you were working at Bibbage under Dr. Malkow. I just noticed that from the very beginning, you had the passion, you had the commitment and everything for our students, and you're just a great friend as well, and a great teacher, and I'm going to miss you a lot. So. Yeah, well, yeah. Don't go too far.
So we appreciate all that, Louise, just continuous support of
Yeah,
the community to make it even better.
yeah.
You guys are awesome. This corporation is wonderful. So much to work to tell any teacher that's coming here. I thank you so much for all the support that you give us and let us be able to help kids. And they are the reason we're here. And they are just amazing people.
She
I
loves
just
it.
love those kids.
I
So it doesn't matter what, and they're just trying to grow up.
Yeah.
And we just have to try to help them. So thank you so much, every one of you guys. I don't know what to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Louise,
Introduce your family.
before you sit down, one request. Never lose your outstanding smile. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Did she introduce her case?
So much. And administration of Lake Central High School, so supportive. And thank you. And Mr. Bailey
Louise, who'd you bring with you tonight?
Bring with you, yeah.
Oh, yeah, did I bring this? Oh, my gosh. How rude. I'm so sorry, guys. I get to bring my husband, Don. I get to bring Vivian from Glasgow.
Yay, Viv.
And also Melody Book, and you guys know Miss Melody from last week.
Yeah.
Mr. Mike Peters, our culinary and also culinary expert and on the second floor and behind the open. Bravo. You kept me going with those muffins and homemade donuts. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Louise.
Thank
What we
you.
do without teamwork, you know, I don't know.
Congratulations on your award.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of work. Okay, that was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Okay, my second item this evening is to present to the board the tentative agreement. I've sent to you both the revised collective bargaining agreement with highlights through the email in your packet, and also the main changes numbered 1 through 4. And so the first thing is we agreed to give all of our teachers who are effective or highly effective last school year a $1,000 raise for the current school year 2021. Additionally, in recognition of teachers who are increasing their skills and were not rewarded for their master's degree since 2011 and 12, any teacher who earned a master's degree since then and was not granted an increase will receive an additional $1,500 effective this year, a raise moving forward. And I believe we're somewhere around 20 individuals in that category. We'll finalize that very soon. We also included in this year's bargaining agreement a limited duration COVID-19 benefit. That was a leave for the current school year. If somebody was uncomfortable coming back for safety reasons or health reasons, they were unable to come to in-person instruction. We had a couple people, I believe, take us up on that. And then we did make some technical corrections in the collective bargaining agreement, several places where you'll see dates changed, and nothing significant, but I think it's important to say that. The law says at this point in time, even though we're not taking action tonight, because this first has to go back to the teachers' union to be ratified to the association, and then it comes back here in 2 weeks for your approval. But at this time, we offer the public a chance to weigh in should they desire to do so. Historically, we have not had members of the public come to talk about it, but they do get the opportunity per Indiana code. And so I will pause now, in case there's anybody in the audience. You didn't have to sign up for this because you don't have to know Indiana code inside and out. But if anybody would like to comment about the tentative agreement with the Lake Central's Teachers Association, now would be the time to come forward. Second and last call. Okay, so at our next board meeting, November 2nd, we will, in addition to these things, seek a $1,000 raise for certificated employees who are not in the bargaining unit. That would be school psychs, administration, and some salaried support staff in central office. We'll also seek a 50-cent per hour raise for classified staff at our next board meeting. That will be for the current school year. Any questions or comments on that from the board?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the superintendent's
You
recommendation.
can't make a motion this evening, Mr. Marshall.
I thought you were asking for one. My mistake.
Thank you, though. We appreciate your support.
So I know that you said that there's 20 individuals with their master's degree, and I think it's phenomenal that we're recognizing that, because not only, it's not the money, it's really that you're recognizing the professionalism and their training that they've pursued. And that's about time in Indiana where we started to treat educators like professionals, so I think that's a really great move. Plus, that also helps your staffing for some of those special, unique classes at the high school, correct?
It can, yes. Anytime people take advanced courses, they become stronger at their craft. So we're happy to do that moving forward again.
Dr. Bracco, is there any bargaining left with the LCTA, or are we pretty much wrapped up on that?
There could be if they go to their ratification meeting and they have questions and feel the need to get back together. We could reconvene. We feel like we've, given the current situation with COVID, we feel like we've extended ourselves the best we can for the current school year.
Is there a deadline? Is there any deadline for when negotiations will end, or is it just open?
Well, if you don't get it ratified by the middle of November, if they don't ratify and then you approve, then you go into an impasse thing, which we've been able to avoid thus far. So it's rather complicated, and I would have to explain it to this board if we got to that point, but I think we're in pretty good shape. Not perfect, but like any relationship, you work at it. And so I think our relationship is strong enough that we're going to come to terms for the current school year.
Good. Thank you.
My only other comment would be at the last item, I'll probably send you an email just wanting some specific information, some detail on that.
Okay. Okay, my next item is to review some COVID-19 data with the board. As you can imagine, it's all-consuming for many staff members. We did resolve the glitch with the state dashboard for Grimmer and Coling, so as of last Monday, their data was up. We posted our impact data last Wednesday on our website. And I do want to remind the board that quarantine data is sometimes difficult to confirm because the data that you get from individual teachers is subject to change. The initial report sometimes changes a little bit as they reflect that there may have been another student close to somebody who was positive. I also want to share that a recent article in the Times that I just saw this morning really only emphasized quarantine numbers, which, are going up for us, but I do want to remind the board that the positive test data numbers are still pretty good, although they're increasing. The article could be interpreted by some to be new quarantines. So if you look at when they said 358 people quarantined, some of those were carryovers from 1 and even 2 weeks before, because any family that has rolling positive cases, every time a new person in the household is positive, that clock starts over, and we ask those families to continue to learn from home till it runs its course and dies out inside that household. I think it's important to recognize that the state and local health departments believe that positive tests are the key, not the quarantine number. They appreciate everybody who's doing the quarantining, but it is designed to curtail the spread. And it's those numbers can be shocking at first glance, but it is the method behind the madness to reduce the spread. I also think if you go to the dashboard today, you would have seen that at the state level, the unique or first-time testers, the positivity rate is rising. It's 11.8% in the state, 12.2% in Lake County. All tests are back up to 6.5% in Indiana and 8.9% in Lake County. Locally, fortunately, our hospital intensive care unit bed utilization is still relatively good, considering the increase in cases. And now for some of the bad news. Over the weekend, a girls basketball player tested positive, which resulted in the need to quarantine 31 other girls from the JV and varsity group. At least 2 more volleyball players who were quarantined last week have tested positive. That resulted in some additional staff members that they were still working out this afternoon. One member of the boys cross country team tested positive, which also took out a staff member. As stated to the Times last week, and as I stated to this board last summer, our staff health is the metric that we really have to follow closely, because we have to strategically make sure that we don't stay around too long to where our staff gets sick where they can't teach remotely. Keeping the education going, even if it's not as good, is very important for us. So we have to continue to watch what's happening on a daily and maybe hourly basis. Thus far, we've been blessed. Our quarantine teachers have taught from home, and our quarantine students, if they're not too sick, are looking in, similar to our full-time e-learners. And then the final thing I would like to bring up that the board has to consider is, what would that infection rate be where we decide to close a school or an entire grade level or perhaps even the entire corporation, or suspend in-person learning and go to e-learning? The guidance I've received from the county all along since mid to late summer was 5% of the total in-person population. Of course, you know, that might make sense if it were an equal balance between staff and students, but if it's more staff, there's no way we can afford it to get that high, I don't think. So we've got to really continue to watch it and see what's happening. But I think that question is going to continue to be asked of not just us at central office, but also of you as board members. And I would open it up now to hear if you have any comments or concerns, or hearing anything that you want to bring to our attention. Can you call on Mrs. Lessentine? I think she had something on this.
Ms. Lessentine, did you have any comments or questions for Dr. Baracco?
No, I think you answered them in your response that you sent earlier, because I think the big question is, you know, what is that number, what is that threshold? And you answered that in the statements that you just made, so I think I'm good for, I mean, as scary a time as it is, and, you know, no one really has the answers. I trust that you are following the numbers and doing what's best for our staff and our students.
Well, I think Dr. Bracco brings up a good point, though. If we use the 5%, that's an aggregate of everyone, and is that what we want to use? Or do we want a certain percentage of staff and a certain percentage of students?
Well, I think like Dr. Bracco said, if we don't have the teachers,
Right, I
then
think
there's
he
no way
alluded to that.
we can
Right.
teach. We can have our students learning if we have a whole series of teachers that are wiped out by the COVID virus and they have to stay at home. Or, but like I said, 5%, I mean, if that's a recommended number.
But that's of the total population.
Of the total
So that's everybody, lumped together. And it could be that we had 4% were teachers and 0.5% were students. That would not be good. So we almost need to break it down, don't we, into separate groups?
Well, I think we have to be willing to massage it, because if you need 160 positive cases at a building like the high school, if too many of those are teachers, you won't be able to function inside the building anyway. And so we do have, I don't know that the number has to be 5% if it's staff, but it probably can't be 15. So I would say if staff starts approaching 10% sickness, even if it's not COVID, because not everybody gets tested immediately, we have to really be nimble enough to say, we think we need to pause at that school, or maybe the entire corporation. But it also is going to depend on what's happening around us, because we don't all just live in our town. We sometimes shop in a Highland or a neighboring town, and so we have to watch each other's data as well. We also know that several schools who started at home have come back either partially or more fully in the last couple of weeks, and there are more coming online here really soon too. So that could also lead to continued increase. All I can say is, you know, in our office, we're watching it every day, and we're reacting to it as quickly as we possibly can so that we can know exactly where we are.
I know you keep
It's
us
just
updated.
hard to know if it's COVID sometimes.
I know you keep us updated as well. Then thank you for that. You keep us updated weekly on those numbers as well.
The other thing I want the board to consider based on this heightened anxiety is whether we, in this public format of having our meetings, should go to once a month. If you remember, in the spring, we actually, when we couldn't get together as a group, we just met as a board and us. We would have been able to take, I think, up to 10 guests from the public maximum. But I think you know that we have scaled back our agendas to limit the time we spend together to cover the most important stuff. And you don't need to make a decision tonight, but we do need to meet in 2 weeks for the collective bargaining piece. But at that point in time, if I could get feedback beforehand to maybe consider going to one meeting a month until we get through this COVID crisis, I think it might be wise for all of us. None of us are in the low-risk group. I won't say any more than that.
Right, we're all at risk, yeah. Definitely. So when the teachers are hit and affected with the COVID, you have data, you have a group of subs that you pull in, and I think that's going to be the driving point. That'll be the decision maker right there. So, yeah, I mean, if the supply's not there, it's the old supply.
The tragedy that we want to avoid is that people actually get sick and are not well enough to teach. And if we let it get that far, then we've damaged ourselves a lot worse. And that, you know, how you draw that fine line, that could be subject to criticism, because honestly, letting anybody get sick is, you know, is troubling. But we do have to try to live with this virus the best we can and do what we do the best we can. But at some point, if it just looks like it's not working, we also have to be honest with ourselves and admit to that. So we'll continue to watch the data.
Thank you.
We thank you for your support.
And Mrs. Mooch, I know some days your office is probably busier than others, so thank you for all that you've done to get us to today.
Okay, my last item is to talk to you about a request for funding for some engineering drawings on a couple of road improvements in the town of St. John. If you look at the colored map, you can see one of them is the red number 5 section, and that's the Klein Avenue extension from 93rd down to 101st, so that you don't have to take that jog over to Blaine. And so if you look at the black and white map, you can see where I drew with my permanent Sharpie there where the line would go through. It would split a couple of our parcels at Blaine Avenue. And what St. John is asking for us is they're going to apply for the grant through NERPC, and for them to get more points in order to have a higher chance of success of getting millions of dollars of support from the federal government, they need partners on these grants. And for us to be an official partner, we need to have at least some type of a vested interest and a financial commitment to it. And so they've asked us for $500 for both of these areas. The other area is 93rd Avenue from White Oak over there on the west side of 41. And so widening that to make it better for the people who live out by Mrs. Sue's, I guess, on the west side of St. John Dyer there on 93rd. So I think it's a good way for us to partner with the town. For sure, both of those make it easier for our residents to navigate and move around. It will help our buses as well. So it does help us. By the same token, I think the bigger picture is it makes quality of life in Tri-Town, especially St. John, for these particular projects better. I expect that Cherville may come to us too, because I know a couple of the projects are in their town as well, like the Kennedy Avenue where they're going to remove that jog. I think that's one that they're trying to get done too. So we may hear from them in the future as well. Any questions about that request from St. John?
It seems like a minimal investment on our part.
It is, and I think that if they can be successful, it brings a lot of improvement to St. John, which helps us live and transport students.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the agreement with the town of St. John.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Malkow. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a
Okay.
second
That's fine.
from
Who won that?
Mr. Baxo. Does anybody have any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we will do a roll call vote. Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Mr. Baxo?
Aye.
Dr. Malkow?
Aye.
Ms. Lessentine? I don't know if we lost her, but I am an aye, so the motion passes. Thank you. Now we'll move on to our Director of Human Resources Personnel, Mrs. Mucha.
You're recommending the following certified appointments and resignations be approved.
All right, do we have a motion?
Second?
Nope, I need a motion first.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mind was drifting there. for a
Mr.
sec.
Marshall will be
Okay.
our
I
motion.
would like to make that motion. Thank you.
All right,
Okay, I'll second his motion.
Mr. Baxter, we have a second. Any questions?
Just a real quick one, the Anne Marie bus driver to Indianapolis, is that going down to the line school? Would that be hard to replace, or will we partner with other schools, or?
No, we have someone who's interested in doing it.
Okay, just curious about that. Okay.
All right, we'll do a roll call. Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Mr. Baxo?
Aye.
Dr. Malkow?
Aye.
Ms. Lessentine? Aye. And I am an aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to Director of Student Services, Mrs. Gramala.
Yes, so my first item is to seek your approval for the professional leave requests that were included in your packet.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second?
second by Dr. Malkow. Any questions?
I like seeing that they're still using Wilson.
Yes.
That was good.
You like to see what?
That they're using Wilson. There was a
Oh,
gal going
Wilson.
to Wilson training, so I like that.
Yes. Yep, we are using it in all of our buildings.
All right, we'll do a roll call. Ms. Lessentine? Aye. Dr. Malkow?
Aye.
Mr. Baxo?
Aye.
And Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Motion passes.
And my second item was just to give you an update and let you know we are still providing some professional development to our teachers. Given our current situation, we've had to be flexible with that. But in September, we had an opportunity to have some training from the Indiana University Center for Secondary Transitions. INSTRICT is the acronym. So we will be monitored on our transition IEPs this year. It's one of the things the state looks at as far as our compliance on what we're doing. And so because we'll be monitored in the spring, what the state does is they pull some of our IEPs, look at them, identify what our problems are, and then offer training to address those problems. So we had teachers, that was all done virtually. We had some teachers trained in September. Last week, we had all of our speech therapists in this room with, again, some no-charge training from the Indiana IEP Resource Center, working on writing goals. And then tomorrow, we have our applied skills teachers doing some more virtual training with a consultant from Project Success. So they help us support our students with more significant needs, and we'll be meeting with them tomorrow. And again in the spring to talk about formative assessment for our students with more significant disabilities. And that's all done virtually. So we're trying to highlight things that we need to be focusing on. Not doing a lot of extra this year because we know our teachers are already overwhelmed. But also trying to take advantage of some of the opportunities that we have to get some free or low-cost PD to our teachers. So we're doing small chunks because of our sub shortages. So most of these are about an hour and a half because we really don't have coverage to have people out a long time. So just wanted to share that with the board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So does everybody go to well, let me rephrase that, because you just said that you had to be careful because you're short on subs. But
Yes.
if I'm really knowledgeable in formative assessments, am I required to go to that?
So
How are you determining it?
this is something that's relatively new for our staff, so we really didn't have anybody that would fall into that very knowledgeable category. We are trying, our standards and expectations for our students with more significant needs are always increasing. And so we're trying to address their needs more effectively and move towards higher expectations for those students. So that formative assessment is really important.
And the only reason I ask that is, we tend to hear, oh, gosh, I knew everything, I didn't really need to go. So
Right.
It's always a good question just to ask yourself
Yeah.
and ask your group.
And the nice thing about our time with Project Success is we do a needs assessment. This is probably our third year working with them. And so we do a needs assessment kind of every summer and then coordinate with them as far as what we believe we need. And I'm always flexible with our staff. So if somebody reaches out to me and says, hey, I just can't be out of my classroom, then we roll with it and get them the information in another way.
Now, is Project Success funded through Department of Ed?
Yes, so it's one of our state resource centers. So there's 13 different, they're called the EARNs, the Indiana Resource Network. So there's 13 different agencies that are fully funded or partially funded. And because of that, then they provide free professional development.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Somebody.
Okay, we'll go on to our Director of Facilities, but Mr. James will be presenting.
Thank you, Mrs. Suze. I am presenting Bill's item. He has one item, and that is to award and execute an authorization allowance for the Grimmer re-roof to Babilla in the amount of $20,000. This is similar to a change order that you're used to in contracts. But as you know, when we do contracts for any building project, we put an allowance in there. And this will be coming out of the allowance that was already built into the contract. So we seek your approval on that.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second?
second by Mr. Baxo. Any questions, comments?
I was just intrigued by, didn't I see Smith and Associates on the change order? So are they managing?
Every time there's a change like this or additional work, it gets approved by the architects, and
So
that's
goes to
they're still the role as the architects.
Gotcha.
And then it has to be run by Bill, and he approves it as well before it gets to this point.
Okay.
In the big project for the high school, when we had a separate construction management team, they would also be involved, but this is just a smaller project that we're doing in-house on ourselves.
Okay.
But since Schmidt's the architect, it all goes through them as well.
Makes sense.
Now,
Thank you.
this is the final for the roofing at Grimmer, right?
That
Isn't
is-
this what we talked about in July, I believe, or August?
I thought it was,
Yeah, this is the second phase.
but now it's done, right?
This will be it, right?
Yeah.
That I'm not, I cannot confirm nor deny how many phases are involved in Grimmer.
Okay. All right, very good. We'll do a roll call. Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Mr. Baxo?
Aye.
Dr. Malkow?
Aye.
Ms. Lessentine? Aye. And I am an aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our Director of Business Services, Mr. James.
Okay. My first item is to seek your approval for, to apply for the common school loan at the state. This is something we do every 6 months or so. This helps replace the technology in our classrooms, smart boards, iPads, Chromebooks, and especially in times like these when so much is more going toward technology-driven curriculum, we find this money very valuable. So we seek your approval to apply for that.
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Lessentine and a second by
Me.
Dr. Malkow. Any questions or comments?
This is annual, correct?
Yes.
This annual school fund loan program?
It's an annual request.
Well,
Yeah.
Every 6
it's actually twice a year. They do a spring one and one in the fall.
Oh, okay.
And so this is the fall. And yes, so then if we apply, hopefully we get approved. We traditionally get approved, but and then you have a year to spend the money. And then once you're all done, then you have a 5-year repayment at 1% interest.
Great.
And we're fortunate that since we've been doing these every 6 months for 10 years now, one is coming off when one is coming on. So in essence, it's, I'll call it tax neutral, but it's neutral because even though we're adding it, we got one coming off on the back side.
That's good to know. Thank you. Thank you for that update. I think that
Thank you.
That's sounds like good fiscal responsibility to me.
Yeah,
Somebody.
definitely sounds like.
But Rob, I do have a question for you because, and you know, I'm always going to ask this. When we spend this kind of money on new equipment and we flood our schools with them, are we adding additional staff to help support?
We're
both
not
the
adding it.
roles of the trainer and then the technicians?
Well, we already have the technicians and the tech trainers that work with the staff. We already have them in place. So just because we're swapping out a smart board or putting in more Chrome cards doesn't mean we have to add more staff.
Well, but some of this is going to be additional, I'm sure. It's not just a replacement.
Most of it is replacement, and if it is, it's things that our staff is already used to. But
Okay, and I just want to remind people that trainers are available for training versus watching the videos.
oh, for
Because that
sure.
has really been a problem for our teachers. And
Well, that's why we have the techs. We have people from our tech department staffed in each building every single day for them to help them with using the hardware. And now in the more delivery of the curriculum itself is where we have the tech trainer positions that
Right.
we added a few years ago. So
Right.
yes, you are correct. Those staff members are there, and our
Right.
teachers should take advantage of them because they're there to help.
absolutely, but I'm going to throw devil's advocate at you because in the high school, we have one tech trainer for the whole high school. And there's no way, I mean, all of us, any of us that have been in a school building know there's no way that that can happen.
Well, we'd have to see what how often he's being, or she being requested, so. before we
I
add
just know
staff.
from hearing people talk, and I know what I dealt with.
Well,
I
just remind them
encourage
to
you-
make sure that they reach out to the people that they should be reaching out to.
Absolutely. That's
So
why I'm
it's
bringing it.
it goes both ways, remember.
Yeah. That's why I'm bringing it up in a public meeting, so
Yep.
that teachers are reminded about that, because there is a concern there. Now, at one point in time, I remember Mr. Marino would report to us, he was collecting data. Remember the reports? He would compile the reports from the teachers, the staff, you know, they were on time, they did their work quickly, it was accurate. Do you remember those reports?
That was in response to work orders.
Yes.
That was not tech trainers, though. That was the
Right.
tech service.
But, you know, can we modify and do something like that? Are the tech trainers available the way they need to be? I mean, I'm hearing that they're not, but that might be wrong.
Well, if people feel they're not, they should come to their proper administrators and share that with them.
And that would be their building principal?
Yeah, the
Right.
first, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and then if not, then to the secondary, elementary. Okay.
Any other questions? Did we vote
No,
on
I
this?
think we have to do a roll call, right? We didn't do a roll call. We did do it?
Did we
No.
do a motion?
We need to do it. Okay, yes, we did a motion.
Sorry about that.
All right, Ms. Lessentine,
Aye.
Dr. Malka,
Aye.
Mr. Baxter,
Aye.
Mr. Marshall,
Aye.
and I am an aye, so motion passes.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now I just want to give the board an update on our ADM. We kind of hinted at this at the last board meeting. In your board packet, I have two sheets in there. One is comparing last year's fall ADM to this year's fall ADM by school. And on that report, you will see that, in essence, all of our schools are down, except for the high school, which is slightly up. District-wide, we are down 248 kids compared to last fall. The second page kind of does break it down by grade across the district. And the numbers at the middle school and the high school are, really not that much different. If you take a look at the ninth grade class that came into the high school of 807 students, the fifth graders that came into the middle school was only 690. So the middle school, just the cohort population went down on its own. And same thing happened at the other schools. That last column on the second page really kind of shows, I did a comparison of the cohorts. So in essence, last year's third graders to this year's fourth graders, and see where the change is. And you can see there actually is not that much change minimally between the cohort. Where our biggest change though was we had 800 seniors graduate last year but we only have 536 kindergartners in this year. So that was the main reason for our drop. There's always going to be more high school seniors than kindergartners, but it was just more of a bigger year this year. Definitely the pandemic plays into that. Parents who may have been sending their kids a little bit earlier or around that cusp may have held back a little bit. So I'm hoping those kids will come back either maybe in the second semester or next year for first grade. So just want to give a board an update on our ADM count. So
Thank you,
any
Rob.
questions?
Thank you.
Rob, do you know if that's in alignment with the or Larry, do you know if that's in alignment with the demographic study that was done years ago?
Well, I can answer that.
Okay.
I think that we had that done in 2016-ish, and we did not see this much of a drop coming this year, but also we didn't see COVID coming
this
either.
year.
Actually, our numbers consistently since we did the demographic study have been better than he predicted, and lots of that statistical analysis is done based on birth rates and death rates and empty nesters and so forth. That one of the things that I think is unique to some of the districts by us is that you can't account for is the influx of people we've seen moving from Illinois into communities like ours and Crown Point and even Munster around the border. A demographer can't measure that or predict that in the future. And the more development and the more that the schools in this area keep up and we do our share, we're going to bring people in. So I think that's why our numbers are better than what he predicted.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. Sounds
If
good.
you look at that chart, though, you will see much smaller cohorts at lower grades.
Yes.
So there is a chance that our population slowly declines when you graduate 800 and bring in 600.
And we can see that even at the high school, we're around 800 at each of the levels. Our 8th grade class is 762, but we dropped to under 700 in 5th, from 7th grade down. So this could be, I would say, a trend, but we know when we see it, we can better prepare for it.
True.
And we're watching it constantly.
True. Well, thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are there any, thank you, Mr. James. Sorry, wait for you. Any public comments? All right, there are none. So we'll move on to board comments and consideration of future agenda items. Mr. Marshall?
I have nothing in particular other than to say that I feel very comfortable with the direction the administration is constantly providing for this district. We see it in a review of emails daily, if not hourly. And I want to compliment all the administration on their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baxo?
I have nothing at this time.
Dr. Malkow?
I'm curious to know how the Wednesday went, the last Wednesday, but don't tell me now because you've only had one Wednesday, right? So maybe in a couple months we could hear how it goes. I mean, I know there were late buses and that's going to happen, that's the name of the game and it'll get better. So I'm curious to hear how that's going. Happened to be at the cross-country event on Saturday and it was so cool to see those Lake Central girls come down that hill in a big swoosh, because they were all together in a group. So the girls took first place and the boys second place. So congratulations to them. It was really exciting.
Don't they have a semi-state this Saturday?
They have
New
semi-state at New
Prairie.
Prairie.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, good.
Is that a good course?
I don't know.
You don't know. I don't know either.
It's a good course for fans. You get to see the runners several times.
Oh, really? Neat. Yeah. It would be worth a trip over there. It's fun to watch. I don't know how they do it. It's just amazing. But no, that's it.
Thank you. Ms. Lessentine?
No, just to say thank you to our teachers and our staff for their continued efforts. We know that they're doing so much. We appreciate that. Continued updates from Dr. Bracco. I appreciate all the updates, so just continue updating us there. And some information like Janice, like Dr. Malkow said regarding Wednesdays, how those are going in a little bit.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to say, good luck to the boys tennis, or I think it's boys tennis. They're going to state. There's
They are?
football. Yes, yes. It was on the paper, the SOS paper.
Yeah, I don't think they qualified for it though, did they?
No, they did not. Okay, well, sorry.
They almost did though.
Well, good luck to our football team next week. And then Dr. Veraco, our fearless leader, made the paper. I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Oh, let's see.
So.
What's
thank
that
you.
flag, what's that flag in the background there? What is that?
Purdue.
Oh.
So thank you for being our poster child again. And that's all I have. So with that, we'll go to board calendar or future activities. Dr. Veraco.
And I'll keep it short and say that we'll be back here in 2 weeks, and I'm sure we'll correspond in abundance between now and then. So thank you all for your support.
Thank you. And with that, do I have,
Move for adjournment.
we have a motion for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, actually, there's an IU fan like me here too, so.
Okay.
So we'll accept this as okay.
Move for adjournment? No. No.